Production sound mixer Maurizio Argentieri's career has included John Wick Chapter 2, Catch-22, The Life Ahead, and The Equalizer 3. His latest project is the acclaimed Netflix limited series, Ripley. I guess, Maurizio, just to start, Ripley is a show where the character is often, very alone, very comfortable with his silence, but obviously it's not silent because there's so much natural sound and the environment is not silent. So I guess, like, kind of, how did you, I was like, wrote down like noisy silence. How do you approach that kind of thing? I guess, like, where it's like not the natural sounds of it.
Well, believe it or not, this was yes, thank you for asking this key element because believe it or not, this was my one of the best warriors for the entire show, as you can imagine. But because normally for a production sound mixer, when you read pages without no dialogue, you can be relaxed. But when I read the pages of Ripley, I say, this is not the case because between those pages, between those line of dialogue and a lot of descriptions in those pages, there are descriptions of emotions, of feelings, and situations and sensations. And I understand immediately that most of them was leading by sound. And so I immediately, it was the first time for me working with Steven. And just to give you an idea, we were in the middle of pandemic, and as you know, Italy was, was hit very hard by the pandemic, and so we shot the show in the middle of that. So relationship wise was not very confident because we have to keep each other away. So yeah, in terms of interplay and and jam session thing was very hard. So going back to your first question, this is just an introduction to let you understand, it was really tricky.
Yeah.
And just to give you an introduction, I understand uh, pretty well that I have to be on control of everything because I was the first one who put the first stone on the construction of the sound of Ripley. And if you see the series, everything, is around, 80% around, production sound. And also there was a lot of other element handled by sound designer, and, but, I felt that I have to give the show something important. So, like, I'll give you an example. The apartment in Rome of Tom Ripley was made in the soundstage. It's fake. But everything you hear sounds so naturally because there was one person that was controlling, like a hawk during 1 month of construction, that the sound floor was put in a proper way that when an actor walk on that, it sound properly and the footstep doesn't sound fake. So it made by real wood. I ordered a special decoupling system to place underneath the floor. All the Ferragamo's shoes are original. So I didn't use, for example, any single piece of dumping thing. So any footstep you hear in the series was, extremely original because I used, I approach all that scene like a small acoustic concert. Instead of, I have violins in front of me, I have heels and movement, fabric, breathing, and I make a meeting with the actors and asking them to not think that I was crazy if I place a radio mics on them while they don't have any line of dialogues, because I thought that even a small breathing and a small reaction for the show was extremely important. The other thing was the space. Because okay, this was an example, for example, but we shoot the series in a lot of beautiful real places in Italy,
Yeah.
like Venice, Amalfi Coast, and other beautiful part of Rome. And of course the original sound was very important. And for me, having a specific immersive rig was very important in this show. So I used a custom-made special immersive double MS rig using a large diaphragm microphone that I can control live with the matrix on my mixing board and give to the editorial department, for example, a version of 5.0 opening of this double MS thing.
Wow.
And that's, for example, this is a small idea, but if you can, if you watch the series, you can imagine how peculiar was this attention for the
Yeah.
of the
I mean,
show.
it's really incredible, and it sounds so like all of this. I'm not surprised to hear you say this because it's like all of it is so like it is so realistic. It just is so. I guess one thing you said there, I was interested. Like, does the peer like? Did you do research into like the period to help with the sound, like how things should sound, or does that because it is obviously a period piece, or are you just like not? Does that not kind of focus? Does that not like draw focus for
Well,
you?
I mean, the period influenced me in another way. I mean, all the object that was there was original.
Right.
Everything. I mean, everything. But also, this is not about only about me because Stephen is very specific. Stephen, is a true, is a dreaming director to work with. For me, it was such an honor. I learned so much. Uh, in this show was really an honor. So and so I get a lot of support from him
Yeah.
for the entire show. And so I was influenced by the period in another way because I want to put a specific signature, for example, in the sound. And because it was black and white, and the style Steven creates around the characters and all this, the tone of the story was very, very specific and in create such kind of tension, for example. So believe it or not, I've used for recording the voice of the actors, for example, tubes microphone preamplifiers,
Huh.
because I want to be attached as a main character to the sound of that period. And so I've used an original Mali tubes microphone preamplifier with the ACC 83 inside, coming from General Electric as a new old stock part of tubes, and using on booms, for example, large diaphragm microphone again to get the sound of the voice. Of course, I put lavaliers as a support, but only as a backup. So I make a decision another time, and is on top on my shoulder this kind of decision, because once you decide to give the sound such kind of character, you cannot go back again.
Right.
And so it's like a stamp, it's like an original stamp. And of course I talked with Steven, but he didn't realize the decision I made until he get in the editing room and he wrote me a beautiful letter.
Oh, that's amazing. You mentioned this stamp and the signature. I wanted to add, like, which is great, and I think that again sounds good. I want to actually ask you about actual signatures. In the seventh episode, there's a lot of writing in notebooks and guest books. And Mao, it just sounds great. The way the writing, and again, it sounds so great. So at the risk of being like, how did you do that? Like, how does it sound? How did you get the writing, the pencil on the notebook sounding so good?
Yes, that's another thing. I for this I have to thank really with the deep of my soul and heart the crew that was around me, that was so patient to make the set so silent in a way that I can crank up the gain of my microphone preamplifiers and get the sound you noticed, because that's an, that's another key element. And also, I have to tell you another little, if I have time, I don't know
Yeah,
if I have
yeah.
time, and another little secret, because there is a lot of tension in the show, and part of this tension was delivered by the contrast we made using, for example, a full analog technique to recording the voice of the actor, but a pristine and clean sound to preamplify the special microphone rig to get the space of the show. So the space and the voice are going for the entire show on two different layers that create this kind of tension during the 8 hours, and I think more than 8 hours show, plus the beautiful work that all the mixers, the recording mixers, the sound designers, the dialogue editors did during the entire show, giving another layer of brightness to all the sound that they put in the show. The sound was made by very tiny and delicate elements, but they are so important that even if they are very delicate, they can come straight to your emotional part.
Yeah, it's incredible, incredible stuff. Maurizio Argentieri, excuse me, from Ripley, production sound mixer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, really. Thank you.